So if you zoom down further into your grid, you'll notice that there is a large box that is right here. This is marks up with your unit of measure that you selected in your settings or kept in your settings. And each one of these boxes is going to be 1 millimeter. So if you were to change that, sometimes it can be easier to move something in smaller amounts just to fit a design up and make it a little more accurate. If you were to move it now, it'd be by 1 millimeter at a time, and you notice that with the unit of measure that's right here, that's one more, one more, one more, one more. And if there's anything smaller, it would move in smaller increments. You can see that right here. That is now moving by 0.1. Just gonna line that back up with the grid, and then reset that. So for the most part, you're not gonna need to do that unless you're doing something a little more precise. So now we are going to work on rotating your object. On your box, you have all different kinds of markings, but you'll notice these double arrows that are on a small curve. And when you hover over that, a couple things highlight. You notice that whenever you highlight something, it turns red. And then on this case, you have two dials. One has larger increments and larger amounts, and then they have smaller increments and smaller amounts. If you were to click on that once, that red arrow, and type in, you could type in a specific unit of measure. We're gonna undo that to go back. Then if you wanted to do something a little more baseline, you can do that and work on this intersection here. So there's an intersection that moves in 22.5, 45, 67.5, 90. If you did shift as well, there's even larger amounts by the 45s. Just move your box around, let go, and that brings the other panel back. And then there's this smaller dial right here, and that's just going to rotate by 1 degree at a time. In the troubleshooting section, we're going to explain some of the pitfalls of rotating an object and then trying to resize it. As with any form of math, especially in vector-based geometry software, things get squashed and squozed, and we don't want that to happen to your design. That's one of the main things we notice whenever someone brings in a Tinkercad program. They say, they didn't know that part, so that's why I'm trying to teach you here. And speaking of size, let's resize this box. There's a number of ways to do that. There is input of manual amount, and there is the ability to just resize it freehand as well. Just say Command Z. Briefly, let's talk about going backwards and forwards. Up here, there is undo, there is redo, and if you ever use anything, you notice this is saying Control Z up here. That's because this is designed, this interface was designed for a PC computer. So Control Z or Command Z, same thing. Undo, Control Y, Command Y, redo. Right next to that is the delete, and then duplicate, repeat, copy, paste, and copy right here. And we'll get to those in a second. Or not in a second, but soon. Alright, so before we talk about reshaping your object, let us talk about what all these boxes are. White boxes, these are going to come up again in a number of the different softwares you're going to work on in Makerspace Academy. These white boxes are called bounding boxes because they represent the boundary of whatever object you have. And if you click on it just once, nothing else clicked here, there are two units of measure. You have the vertical and then the horizontal one. This is talking about the X and Y axis. There's another one up here. This is your height measurement, and it's showing you the top line to the bottom of your shape, not necessarily the bottom of the work plane. There is an arrow only on this one, and that lets you know that you're going up, and when you click on it, another unit of measure will show up underneath right here, and that is the height. That is why sometimes the shadow might be helpful, which is why we're not going to turn it off when we're using it. Let's center this a bit. If you've accidentally made something float up and you want it back, there's the letter D. Press on it, that automatically takes your shape back down to 0. You also know that because there's no shadow underneath. And if you try to mess with that again, it starts at 0. Okay. So there is, with each box, between the bounding boxes, there's actually another black box in the middle. And that means, as you'll see with the units of measure on the side, there is another point, another part where you can say that, oh, this only goes horizontally, or this only goes vertically, this only goes horizontally, etc., etc. So if you were going to reshape it, and you just wanted to go back and forth without risking a resize from this whole shape, you can just click these black boxes and just stretch it back and forth. Again, we will talk about the importance of reshaping something and resizing something in the troubleshooting section of the videos. So right now we're just going to double this in size and scroll out a little bit, and we can either click this box and manually move it up to 40 right there, or going back, click on it once, click on the unit of information right there, the unit of measure, type in 40, press enter, and it resizes it. And by having that box selected, it's telling you which way it's going to resize something. And say I want this to be 15. I'm going to click this box here, type in 15, enter, and it's now shrunk back 5 millimeters. So that's the fastest way to resize. There's a fast way to resize it of manually doing it. This is the most accurate way to do that. And like so. I'm going to actually lower this as well. We're going to click on this top box here, click on the unit measure, and I'm going to lower this down to 5. So it's really short. Now that we have our shape, we are going to work on adding other shapes to this this shape here, and how those shapes can be interacted with and properly grouped together and aligned here in the menu at the top.